Okay, I guess so. We are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Madhur, and it's great to have you all here today for the season end session. Most of us seem to be strategizing business for next year as well as planning our holidays at the same time. At Amber, we are committed to building a transparent environment for our partners, providing actionable insights to help navigate challenging landscape. Last year was intense for all of us. New challenges and new learnings. It did show us the value of agility and collaboration, though. Most of the operators have launched the prices for next year. Early booking trends have proved invaluable last year, safeguarding many operators. Of course, the market remained dynamic and multiple factors are adding to this. Australia and Canada enrollment cap news has been out. But the stringent sponsorship criteria for jobs in the UK market is making market dynamics a bit more complicated. UK university rankings have also played a significant role in pricing strategy this year. We'll take you through all those insights throughout the session. It's encouraging to see so many of you already using our flagship tools like Amber Connect, that is our in house analytics tool to track the business insights and trends, as well as our Growth Accelerator program. This increases our confidence to keep investing in building tools that will enable data back insights and decisions for all our partners. This year has been one of the most significant years of growth for us. We have tripled our partnerships in US and Canada and introduced close to 700 premium student accommodations in Germany, Spain, and other European regions. We'll also be launching UK student housing report in next few days. We'll keep you posted on that. Oh, I see few more folks have joined in. That's fantastic. It's encouraging to see a lot of folks from industry attending this webinar. Joining me today are David and Sandeep, who will dive further into booking trends, launch price trends, and factors that will impact upcoming season. Please keep posting any questions you might have in the chat, and I'll see you soon. Let's dive right in.
Thanks very much, Madhur. Hi, my name's David Seymour. I'm the VP here at Amber, and we're really excited again to be delivering another webinar in the series. And this time we're looking into a bit of a review of last year, look at not only performance, but some of the perspective that we're seeing in the global market and specifically coming into the UK. We'll be going through a number of key areas. We look into the future a little bit later on as well, and some factors associated within that. I'll be handing over partway through to Sandeep, who'll be looking at some booking performance pieces, and then I'll be coming back on after that and be looking at some of the future developments and some of the things that we're very excited about within Amber. It's obviously been a very interesting year. We'll be going through a little bit more detail in a minute. If I may, I'm going to try to go on to the actual deck. So bear with me, and I will hopefully get that up on the screen now. Okay, I think I've managed it. So let's crack straight on and look at the initial landscape. And we'll start off by looking at the visas being granted into the UK. Now, although we know that UK does remain a desirable and leading destination for international students, the recent data that's come out has shown a notable trend. As we all know, there has been a drop in student visas being issued. It's down by 13% overall, which we saw approximately 262,000 student visas being issued, a drop of 13% year on year from the Q3 24 versus Q3 23. So the regional impact of this, if you look at India being down 27% year on year, we're equating probably around between 30 to 40,000 fewer students in the market. This is obviously driven by the policy changes and dependency changes on immigration for students, and also some of the scaremongering about student reforms and things like that earlier on in the year. And that had a major impact and made Indians very, very skeptical and looked at other options. Nigeria was the biggest hit percentage-wise, down by 61% year on year. This wasn't just about the visa reforms and policy adjustments. There is an economic downturn across Nigeria, which makes the UK very expensive to come to study in. We also saw China dip down by 5%, but that 5% is 5,000 students, so it's still pretty significant. This wasn't due to any policy reforms. This was very mainly to look at competition. China's got competition with itself, and also Australia and Hong Kong, to name but a few, which is taking a little bit of the market share and becoming more desirable destinations for students to go and apply their trades, if you like. So it's not all doom and gloom. I think one of the things that we need to highlight is the dependence piece, where 84% reduction in dependent visas, mainly master's programs. So that had a big dent, and the knock-on effect within the localized markets will be seen a little bit later on, as we show further on in our analysis and reviews. Despite all these challenges, UK student numbers remain above pre-COVID levels, and there should be some momentum going into next year, but we'll be looking at as we go forward. If we go from that starting point and we look at some of our trends on our platform, and the traffic trend is one of the key factors. So one of the key things that we would look at is the total number of students migrating into the UK, and see how our traffic numbers are stacking up to that, not just year on year, but actually as a market share piece. And although the numbers were down by 27% from India coming into the UK, we only saw an 18% drop in our traffic. That's our total, although that traffic came in much later. So these were some of the challenges that we were facing. But when we look at the initial search stages of people coming onto our platform and having a look around, weighing up their options before they've inquired, before they make any form of engagement, we've had a lot of UK domestic traffic coming up early. We saw a peak in March and a slight fall, and then it went back up in sort of July, August time through clearing. We did see a lot of domestic traffic that were looking but not booking, to coin a phrase. Interesting, their average returns to the platform of 5.6. They about 6 times they were coming on and off the platform, weighing up their options before they made any form of engagement. India was a similar thing, but later, peaking, not surprisingly, peaking in August. We saw a very, very slow start year on year, a gradual build of traffic, I would say. Again, unsurprisingly, August was the peak, but return to pre-COVID trends, waiting for visas and all the CAS letters to go out and all that sort of stuff. So a lot of the work that we've been doing, educating the Indian market to come and look earlier and book earlier, because of the tensions, everything went backwards a little bit, and we saw an average of 8 times coming onto our platform before making a booking. So a longer sales cycle, a longer whole piece of the search criteria within that. China was a really interesting one for us. We obviously launched into China really excitedly, and sort of launched our first platform in February, and we saw a bit of a spike in March in some traffic, but then we saw it sort of dipping back down, and only when we released our upgrades in the China market and got a few more things in place, we saw some really, really good results coming through. That was late for the market, but we did get some very positive feedback and performance from August, which was great. And actually the buying behavior was very interesting. I mean, not necessarily surprisingly, but only 2.3 visits to our platform before making an inquiry decision. And actually we do see the knock-on effect of that. Is late in the market. We're not surprised by that, but we should have some more detail in comparison moving forward as we continue to gain a ground and market share for the Chinese market, which is really interesting for us. It's a new thing, and we're building a really good structure out there at the moment. Looking onto from the traffic inquiry, the search and discovery stage, we're looking at inquiry and booking trend within this. And from that search stage, we go into that discovery stage and where we capture the inquiry. The behavior across many cities this year is consistent with markets having increased availability, more choice, HMO competing with traditional PBSA markets as dependents have left gaps associated within that. So overall, there's been a shift to a much later and much more price sensitive market. As I mentioned before, UK domestic not booking, elongating the sales cycle from initial search, booking inquiries, and then there's more HMO availability, initial high prices for PBSA made decision making with a lot of availability, made a longer period for decision making. For inquiries, shortlisting. From UK students, they tended to shortlist 4 or 5 properties and seemed to be more price sensitive than previous years. It may be the cost of living or how the market was presenting itself with the pricing and having more lower end HMOs available as well. So they were having an average of 4 touch points to make a booking, which it seems a bit long. Well, longer than previous years anyway, but it does seem that we had a lot of domestic traffic coming on and really weighing up their choices and coming to us to be able to look at their choices all in one place. Indian students were quite consistent interest throughout, but for the inquiry they're shortlisting up to 7 properties, so they did need a little bit more help in that market. Again, pretty price sensitive, and having 6 touch points ahead of booking. That was an increase from last year. Obviously the later on in the cycle you get less touch points, the urgency and demand comes along in that as well. So there's an awful lot of things that we're able to pick up, but and sort of enter into understanding the behavioral patterns of this, and we'll have a little bit more like for China for next year. They were shortlisting only 1 or 2 properties and making a quick decision, and I think that's because they were much later on in the year and availability was dropping in some of the markets that they were looking in as well. But it's something that we're looking to give out a response to and be able to open up our Amber Connect deck so that everybody can see each of their markets and seeing the sales cycles and the touch points and things like that. So it's a lot of development going on behind the scenes within that, but it's the behavioral patterns are we're working on to get more effective and efficient in what we do. The inquiry volume trend year on year, we have seen drops. Even though London sort of dropped quite significantly, we have seen an increase of our market share of traffic and an increase of conversion, which again sort of counteracts some of the overly drop of overly drop, what I'm talking about, the excuse me, the big significant drop in inquiries that we did see. We have highlighting university rankings that do play a pretty big part. We've seen 9 universities in London alone drop their rankings within the top 200, which does make a big difference. London did show quite a high price engaging, and they were sort of dynamically priced up by about 25%, or between 10 and 23%, in terms of their overall pricing. But that remained pretty consistent. Manchester was an interesting one for us. We saw an increase of demand late on, which was a stable market share for us, but it was coming very late. We did see an increase in conversion. There was very price sensitive markets within that. I think Manchester was pretty solid overall. Had a bit of a scary start. But the University of only dropped 2 places, so it wasn't particularly significant across the board there. Nottingham was pretty flat for us in terms of our overall demand. It was similar to last year. Slight increase of market share. We had a stable conversion within that. We thought there would be a little bit of a dip in demand because of University of Nottingham dropping 8 points in the rankings, but that's okay, I think, in terms of that. But there is a sort of a lot of well, the supply outweighs the demand in Nottingham, as we know at this stage, and there were significant price drops, which we'll come on to, which helped gain a higher conversion later on for us. But yeah, overall we're seeing a combination of sort of inquiry volumes up and down across the country, but the key messaging for us is that we're doing more with those inquiries. We're gaining greater market share. Coventry, for example, we see a minor demand dip, stable market share, minor increase in conversion. Warwick has gone down a couple of points. Coventry is still a challenging city for most, and we've seen sort of launch prices lower down. Nobody's being particularly punchy with those going forward, but overall we saw a lot of the inquiry volumes, even if they're up, they were coming very late, which made it very tough for us to be able to turn those around and gain momentum with conversions. We'll move on now, and I'll just introduce you to Sandeep, who will take you through some of the booking trends. We'll do some global booking trends, then we'll go regionalized, and then I'll pop back up to have a look at some of the pricing trends that we saw, dynamic pricing trends for the year, and then look at some of the future factors that we could be looking at, and to be have a little bit of an overview from there. But that's enough of me garbling for now. I will hand you over.
Thanks, David, for walking us through the source country-wise traffic and city-wise inquiry trend. It really highlights how student journey vary across the year. And hi, everyone. I'm Sandeep Yadav, Associate Director of Supply in Amber. So unlike in the past, where issues would affect one destination at a time, for example, UK versus Australia, US versus Canada, recent challenges have impacted multiple countries together. On the Amber platform, aside from UK domestic students, India, China, and Nigeria, Southeast Asian countries like Vietnam, Thailand, and Philippines are also contributing most of the booking. So with that context, let's begin with the global booking trend that wrapped up 2024. So allow me to share my screen and hope the screen is visible now. All right. So let's start with the UK as a destination country. UK domestic bookings dropped by 9% year-over-year, reflecting a shift towards private housing and BTR properties. India as a key source country, so 8% drop from first year. Early negative market sentiments slowed bookings, with many students looking but not booking. Overall, this UK experienced a 9% drop in booking, where other destinations like Australia, Ireland, US, and Canada showed positive trends. This decline in UK international booking actually boosted interest in Australia and Canada, where demand grew. Amber's footprint also expanded to meet this demand. We have added new destination countries like Germany and Spain in our portfolio, further strengthening our global presence. While we are focusing on the UK in this webinar, it's important to note that the US could absorb some of the UK's migration, and Australia recent international student capping may redirect demand back to the UK. Later in this session, we will explore this and other factors influencing booking trend at the domestic and the global level. Now, let's take a closer look at the UK booking trends. This year, several factors contributed to the decline. A slow start from the major source countries, immigration policy change, and proposed restriction, high launch prices, creating hesitation among international students. As a result, overall traffic to our platform dropped by 18%. Inquiries were down by 12% year on year. Booking declined by 9% year on year. However, there is a silver lining. Despite the lower traffic, Amber increased the market share of that traffic. Additionally, our inquiry to booking conversion rate improved significantly compared to the last year. This means we captured a larger portion of the traffic and converted it more effectively, showcasing our strong presence in the market. Let's talk about UK domestic students. Booking from this segment dropped by 9.13%, reflecting longer sales cycle and decision-making delays. Additionally, increased availability in HMO offered students more choices, impacting our numbers. For India, if we look at the graph, India showed slower growth until July this year compared to the last. However, the pace picked up from August onwards, which is typically for India as a late market. This delayed the overall booking cycle to the latter part of the season. Overall booking from India were down by 8.5%, primarily driven by lower migration levels, which was down by 27%. These challenges heavily influence the number this year. Now, shifting focus to other nationalities, many of which showed consistent booking demand throughout the years. This consistency was largely due to our increased market share in new source countries like China and Southeast Asia. In fact, we started our China-based operation in February, while inquiries from China came in later in the season. Amber gained solid momentum, effectively capturing market share in this region. Lastly, let's talk about Nigeria. Unfortunately, bookings from Nigeria saw a significant drop this year. A 63% decline, largely attributed to visa restriction, which have created major barriers for students from this region. So that's wrap up my part. Before I hand it over to David to take this session forward, let's do a quick poll. It will be live in just a few seconds, and your feedback means a lot to us. Here we go. Great. We have received your responses. Thank you so much for your input. David, it's all yours.
Thank you, Sandeep. That's really interesting. Some really good stuff in terms of our booking trends. Hopefully, people are finding it insightful, enjoying the webinar so far. I've just worked out how to use my video, so you have got my ugly mug for the rest of the webinar. We're going to crack on and have a little look at some of the dynamic pricing comparison pieces for the year, and then we're going to look at some of the future challenges and forecasts associated. So without any further ado, let's have a quick look if I can work this out. There we go. So if you were looking at this last year, this slide that you're seeing would have been pretty much totally green. It was a stellar year last year for leasing, and operators made the most of it and saw huge increases of dynamic pricing, very high return of investments, probably had relatively low cost per acquisition as well. But this year is obviously very different and had its own challenges. And what we did see, we can see an awful lot of red on this screen this year. So off the back of that stellar year, operators launched with high expectations, and the prices reflected their bullishness. So unfortunately, there was a bit of a perfect storm, and a lot of the challenges that we've highlighted already went towards the reason why we've seen drops in pricing and everything else. So the initial stages were very high prices in the vast majority of markets, and there was a delay in buying decisions from the early markets based upon them becoming more price sensitive. There was less students in the market, so that demand in cities, there was less demand, and obviously those cities were had more competition. So with that increased availability, there were pockets of availability where you weren't seeing that in previous years. So the Dependency Act had a knock-on effect, and with less students in the market, in the particular HMO market, you saw a number of students that would normally be taking PBSA as their sort of only choice. They were able to be taking HMO, and so there's market share being taken by the HMO. And so all markets sort of became very price sensitive, and not all markets, but the vast majority of markets became very price sensitive. And obviously, we saw a number of operators increasing their incentives to the student to try to capture that market. And now they started much earlier than previous years and much more aggressively as well. And with that, we did notice a lot of UK students coming to us because they didn't know who to believe. Very much a sort of a classic marketplace thing where students were being bamboozled by a number of operators and actually came to us to say, who do I believe? Who's the best choice? What would suit me best? So we did see a lot of new customers coming onto, or new demographics coming onto our platform to understand what was going to be of value to them. And whether they stayed on a platform and booked through us or they jumped off our platform and booked direct, we don't mind. We know that's part of what we do. Inevitably, we saw price drops, and the last thing an operator wants to do is to drop their price, because obviously it negatively affects the property valuation. So we saw the incentives kick in when those weren't working, or they didn't seem to gain as much traction. We did see wholesale price drops in a number of cities, and they started far earlier than we've ever seen before. And they started off from May, and so this was sort of clear that they were willing to take a hit just to get bums in beds, if you like. Also, we did see, where a lot of our strategic partners were coming to us and sort of saying that their cost per acquisition, their channel costs were really, really high, and obviously our costings are very, very clear. It's risk free, and they were coming to us to be able to help them. And I'm very pleased to report that we were able to help the vast majority of our partners in most of their destination cities. The only market where we saw increases across every bed type was London, and that we saw, I think it was, I had a number in my head, but I think it was 25%, but I think it was probably closer to 20% rental increases across London, starting from a pretty bold starting point as well. In terms of next year, the launch prices have been, most operators have launched, and most operators have come in much more conservatively. There's a work in progress for us to be doing our analysis on that and to be able to deliver that out. If you do want that report, please do give us a shout. We're more than happy to service anybody that needs anything in any of their localized cities or towns. Or if you want for us to do a bit of analysis and to help you plan the year ahead, we're more than happy to delve into some of our Connect Dash insights and share what we know and help guide you across some of the pricing pieces. One of the modules that we've developed on the Amber Connect is a pricing piece for each city, so you can see the average pricing and availability across each of the cities. It's anonymous, so there's no conflict of interest, but it's something that a number of our smaller operators have been utilizing, and strategic partners as well. So that sort of wraps up our review. In terms of looking forward, I'd like to have a little look at sort of some of the factors, global factors that may be affecting what we're looking at for next year. And obviously, this is a webinar about the UK, but to understand how the UK may well be affected, or some of the factors, you've got to look at the global landscape. And in doing so, you can be looking at the source countries as well as the destination countries, and understanding some of the challenges faced, or some of the factors associated. You know, the one thing that the sentiment that we have at the moment is the UK is becoming a little bit more stable politically. The sentiment, certainly from the source markets, is viewing UK as a desirable destination without any real issues with them traveling to it, and being welcomed. The post-study work visa is still very strong and plays a big part. Dependencies, yes, that does play a part of a negative effect. However, we are expecting student confidence. We're getting an initial feeling of student confidence from our education agency partners, and they're all we're expecting a bounce back. But we will be monitoring things, and as we always sort of say, we'll be monitoring all the market forces, and happy to deliver anything into our audience here now, and also any of our partners moving forward. We're happy to share any insights that will be able to help your businesses stabilize and grow. When we look at the likes of Australia and Canada, with their international student capping, we saw, before those caps came into play, a surge for the Australian market in the last month. So we've seen that spike. We're probably looking for Australia to slow down, and that's playing into the hands of the UK, especially. US and Europe will be benefiting. When we look at the US as a destination country, it's something that we are looking at in terms of the Trump effect. It was inconclusive whether the Trump effect had too much effect last time. There was a sort of a lag associated with that. There is a little bit of sentiment that we're monitoring at the moment, potential restrictions on China. Certainly certain courses have already been restricted, so that may well play a part in the desirability of Chinese students going to America, which the knock-on effect that they may well look to be coming to the UK. However, what we are seeing is a number of other countries being coming into the fray, destination countries in Europe, Southeast Asia. We're seeing sort of various different rankings of universities going up, which is actually helping, making it more of a challenge for the UK, Australia, and the US as traditional destination countries, taking a little bit of market share away. China also are heavily investing in their own higher education system, and sort of we would continue to see a reduction in migration. They're sort of obviously planning to avoid the brain drain, as they call it, and probably will be putting restrictions on associated to studying abroad as well, but that remains to be seen. We're taking some advice associated to that, and we're monitoring that as we go along. The one thing that we do look at is currency fluctuations, and not just in terms of cost of living in destination countries. So the UK is seen as quite a high cost of living, but actually the likes of India, where the elections have just been finished 2 months ago. Elections were finished, and we had over here we had a big drop in the rupee. There's 2 drops, and they're largest drops for over a decade. So that does make a big difference in terms of the choice of destination, and the length of course, and everything else as well. So we're waiting to see what that impact is, but you know, where you've got students and families that are price sensitive, and that does make a difference, that could have a knock-on effect to the overall migration. But all of these things we will be monitoring and feeding back, and you know, there's other areas as well which we couldn't fit on the slide today, but there's a number of pieces that we would keep everybody informed with. But it's on a global piece, it's quite important that we keep abreast of everything. And luckily, we've got loads and loads of partners in all of our source countries that are open, and we have strategic partnerships, so we can actually see all the when the CAS letters are going out, we can see the applications coming in for various different universities and things like that. So we're happy to share some of that information with our strategic partners to help making those decisions as we go along, as we've mentioned before. We do need to look at some of the domestic factors and things that could and maybe affect more cities and localized cities. We don't see any sort of expected sort of political reforms, so that sort of the open door policy is pretty good, welcoming. Yes, there'll be a dependency visa continuing to affect migration of Nigerian students and probably Indian students as well. The UK university rankings is one that we do suspect will be a negative effect in a number of cities. I don't think it was an effect this year. I think it'd be more of an effect this year, this next oncoming year. We've seen some pretty steep drops in rankings. Nottingham will be of concern, to name but one. Cardiff will be another big concern, where it's dropped about 27 places. I think it's gone out of the top 200 as well. So these things will have a knock-on effect for the international market, especially. HMO will continue to threaten the PBSA market and challenge the traditional market share that they've had of certain student demographics. So Indian students, which will be relatively price sensitive and normally coming into the market quite late, so HMO is all taken, probably will be coming in a little bit earlier and looking to snap up some of that. So it remains to be seen how a lot of these things sort of come out. One of the things that is worth identifying and showing is the process that students are going through now when they're selecting either a country or a particular city. They are coming to the education agencies when they're looking to travel abroad. They are looking, before they even choosing universities, they are looking at the cost per living in those particular cities and the average rental that they're going to be having to pay. More and more, the importance of accommodation and the part it plays and the finance associated to it makes a big difference to the student choice. And we have a huge part to play within that. We are working hand in hand with all of our education agency partners, educating them as part of our Connect Dash, and also educating them with furnishing with information about each city, the average prices in those cities when it's likely to be sold out, and how much that's going to be costing a student overall for their stay. These things are really important to students and making a big difference. So it's worthwhile keeping an eye on all of these things. And again, we're more than happy to furnish information if there's any relevant and salient points that we can help you guys make sort of the right business decisions as you go through the season, and also obviously plan for the next season as well. That's oh no, I've got one more slide, sorry about that. Yeah, how could I forget? I'm just going to come on just to round off, just to give you a flavour of what we've been doing as a business, and what the future holds for us and all of our partners. As a student housing solutions provider, we're more than just a marketplace. We've got thousands of B2B partners globally that we work with to support their strategic goals and service all of their needs. We've increased our footprint globally, not just taking on new source countries in Southeast Asia. We've got presence in China, new offices in China, Singapore, Thailand, and the US. We're also, our footprint includes taking on new destination countries, which the US and Canada were one of them. We've made some great strides into that market over the last year, and we've also, through demand, with popular demand, if you like, we've gone into Spain and Germany and they're proving to be really, really strong, or will be strong at least. Initial stages for Germany are looking great. So we are sort of developing an awful lot of our reach and our global footprint, and by doing so, that really does help our strategic partners and our supply partners, and the knock-on effects of that. Because obviously, when we're opening out more destination countries, they're serviced by various different and the same source countries. And so when we reverse engineer and work with our education agency partners and have our strategic partnerships, they're wanting to work with us because we've got more destination countries than anybody else, and we've also got more supply associated with everybody else. So we've got a captive market, and we're able to gain greater market share, and we use technology to be able to service those B2B partnerships, and also to look after those students that are coming through. So the advancement in technology is really important for us, where we've developed our front-end booking journey, end-to-end booking APIs, so with supply partners allowing for us to have a book now functionality, so they're avoiding any manual intervention. You know, Gen Z don't want to speak to people. Let's give them a proper service where they can, if the content is good enough, they're going to make a buying decision there and then on our platform without having to speak to somebody within that. Obviously, there is a hand, looking after students and servicing them effectively, but a lot of the time they don't want to have to speak to people. They're making buying decisions based on the content they're seeing, and if we've got good level content, then that's a really big factor for us. The back end of our technology, we're sharing out an awful lot with our partners, not just our supply partners, but our education agency partners and our new institution partners as well, where they've got access to our Connect deck. And that allows for full transparency and all insights, and we're building out those insights. As I mentioned before, we're building pages which show each city and the average price points, and when they're likely to be, where the availability is, where the price point is likely to go, and also when it's likely to be sold out. So that in turn helps education agencies educate the initial student journey, and we can help them to be able to create a natural sort of urgency in their booking and search criteria. When we reflect on our performance and our efficiencies, we've done really well, I think, with a lower amount of migration levels. We've actually surpassed our bookings from last year in the vast majority of our destination countries. We had a slight dip in the UK of 9%, but when you look at India being down by 27% migration, and our traffic only being down by 18%, and our conversion rate's gone up. So our servicing has been far better, and our conversion rates have been very strong across the board, and we're continuing to develop those. In terms of our future developments as well, we're doing an awful lot of work with our platform, with institution partners, a lot of education agencies as well, but the institution partners have come to us to be able to help them solve some of their housing needs, not only for their first year students, but also the second and third years as well. So we've got a number of institutions that have taken on our platform, and we've got exclusive rights as well to a number of education agencies and institutions, where the great news for our supply partners is that we have an awful lot more views going on to our platform. And it's not just a single platform, because we'll have multiple platforms in every destination country, and we'll have multiple platforms in every source country as well. So this is something that we are developing, and if anybody would like to find out a bit more about that, we're more than happy to go through on a one-to-one session and work through that. We've launched out our institution division, headed up by Jules, and he's based in the UK, and working really closely with landlords as well as institutions to be able to develop an all-rounded housing offering, which is really, really exciting. If you want to find out anything more about that, please get in touch with us, and we're more than happy to let you know what we're doing and why we're doing it and how we're doing it. But yeah, I'm just conscious of time. Just looked at the watch, and I've been told that I'm running out of time, so I've got to stop garbling on and mumbling. So massive apologies for that. And I think we haven't got any time for Q&A, but we'll do an extra Q&A session. Either we'll record a Q&A session, or we will just answer directly, because there's a number of questions that have come in, a few anonymous, but I'm sure we can overcome them. But yeah, if it's an interesting factor. We will definitely get hold of everybody and invite everybody in for sort of a whistle-stop tour of various things that we're doing. And if anybody wants to come out to India or to China, or come and see us in Southeast Asia, we'll be welcoming everybody. That's it from me. Thank you very, very much for your time and patience. That's the last screen. You've got an email address there. Please send any emails to that, or you can contact me direct. I'm more than happy to deal with that personally. As the other thing I wanted to mention, just as a sign-off note, was you may be realizing that we haven't got Shrey with us today. The reason for that is he's getting married very, very soon, in the next few days. And we're really excited. And so he was wound up with all of his wedding preparations. And I actually went to my first Indian wedding a week and a half ago, which was an amazing experience. They seem to last forever throughout 3 or 4 day periods. They are absolutely amazing. So we want to wish Shrey all the best of luck, and I will certainly look forward to celebrating with him. But thank you very much, everybody. The last thing from me is let's hope that Tottenham win tonight. Otherwise, I'll be crying in my tea again. Thanks very much, everyone, and I'll see you soon.